Happy Friday. Welcome in. It's Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. It is Friday, October 20th. Brendan Glasheen, your host, joined by Tanner McGrath, and Anthony DeBundo is with us today. Payoff Pitch is 5 days a week. We are here every weekday, so back on Monday. That is a reminder to be locked into the Action app, as well as actionnetwork.com, however you find us, for written content, short video content as well, that you can find on our YouTube page. Subscribe to our YouTube page. We will have content through the weekend, but the podcast will be back on Monday. I won't even try to give you the popsicle headache as far as what the schedule is for Monday. But we got two games today. We've got two just like yesterday, but we're flipping the times. We've got Astros and Rangers. They start just after 5 Eastern. Verlander, Montgomery, your pitching matchup. And that series is now tied 2-2. Astros win 2 games in Arlington after losing 2 games at their home ballpark. And the Phillies up 2-1 on the Diamondbacks. They are in Arizona. D-backs got a win in the bottom of the ninth yesterday afternoon in Arizona. Okay, let's dive in. We've got a lot to get to here in a short amount of time. Oh, let me get some other housekeeping taken care of. If you haven't done so already, we've been reminding you to please, if you are so inclined, to leave us a 5-star rating and a review if you want to be in the running for a 1-year free subscription to Action Pro. Leave us a review right now. If you've already done so, you can have your wife, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a sister, a brother, a landlord, whoever has a phone that wants to hop in wherever you drop those reviews and 5-star ratings. We appreciate it. We'll give out a winner on Monday. So this is the last day you can do that for this week. And then we'll do it the following week and so on and so forth as long as the playoffs are going on. Also, DeBundo has been active. So is Tanner in the Action Network Discord. Completely free to join. Download the Discord app and you can find our Action Network contributors in our baseball channel during these postseason games. Jump in, chat with the experts and other listeners. It's a great way to sweat out some bets together. And there's a link to the Discord server in the description of this episode. Very easy to find. So there you go. Let's dive in. Houston and Texas, Game 5. We've got Montgomery, Verlander, the matchup. Total's at 9. The total has soared over in the last 2 games. Texas is slightly favored, Tanner. What direction do you want to go in? The Houston Astros have made this a series.
Yeah, I mean, as we expected, the series was going to be a bloodbath, 6 or 7 games, and it's been amazing so far. And unfortunately, I'll leave it to DeBundo. I got nothing on this game. Far too hard to project for me. I'm trying to figure out if Justin Verlander will have his command back for this game. On longer layoffs, his breaking ball command kind of slides. I think that's why he tossed 3 walks against Minnesota on 6 days of rest, 2 against Texas on 7. But on normal rest, you'd think he'd refine his command, get back to doing what he does best, which is spamming fastball slider. His batted ball profile in his 2 playoff starts looks pretty good. His stuff looked decent as it did for most of the year, 106, 107 stuff plus numbers. Jordan Montgomery has been red hot, 30% hard hit rate, 280 expected batting average. Has walked only 2 batters, struck out 13. This is in 3 playoff starts. It's hard to find anything about Montgomery that I love. He kind of just gets the job done. And I think having that elite Rangers defense behind him is a big plus for a pitch to contact, sinker change guy. These are 2 lineups that crush left-handed pitching. You'd think that the 2 bullpens would be stretched. I mean, this is the 3rd day in a row that they've played. But a lot of the top relievers were saved yesterday in the blowout. I know that, with the roof closed, some people are going to be playing the under. And I don't mind trusting that Montgomery and Verlander have their good stuff and the better relievers come into play. But the total's coming down a bit too much for me. And these Houston, Texas games, they just keep going over. 3 straight in this series. Only game 1 went under. And like I said in the preview for this series, we should expect a lot of runs. That makes it 17 games between Houston and Texas this year, 11-6 to the over. It's just crazy runs. I don't know what side to pick. I know that Sean Zerillo would back Houston at plus 110. I don't mind getting a good underdog price with Verlander. That would be enticing. But for right now, I am passing on the entire game.
Yeah, DeBundo totals at 9, juice to -120 at BetMGM. First 5 total at 4.5 runs. What angles might you have on this series? And to Tanner's point, that first game, 2-0 finish with Verlander and Montgomery on the mound in those games. So now that we've got a series here, how do you feel about this particular game? And are we due for an under possibly in this one?
Yeah, I like the under here with the roof closed. I think it's too high at 9 because this is essentially, it's not a game 7, but it's going to be managed like one, where you're going to see both teams kind of empty the bullpen here.
Yep.
Abreu Presley did not pitch last night, which I thought was the biggest takeaway from the late innings of that game. Texas never got enough runs on the board to force Presley and Abreu into the game where they'd have to throw back-to-back days, which would potentially, either limit or make them more ineffective tonight if they needed to throw 3 and 3. Texas did not use any of their top guys. I would expect in any reasonably close game, all of them to pitch. Leclerc, Spores, and Chapman, the 3 that they trust at the back end there behind Montgomery. That does limit how much I think Montgomery can go here. The outs props are back above 15.5 again, which, I know how good Montgomery's been in these playoffs, but that is high.
Montgomery 6 1/3 in game 1, Verlander 6 2/3.
Right. And they both went deep and they both pitched really well. There's a few other things to note. Marvin Hudson behind the plate tonight, pretty strong walk boost. He's a pretty tight zone. So I did take some Justin Verlander over 1.5 walks. You can find that at -131 at one book. Verlander's command, Tanner just talked about that. I'm concerned about that in this matchup because Texas has been so patient and so willing to wait him out. He also didn't get a single whiff on his fastball in game 1. And quite frankly, he's lost his fastball, as the old saying goes. 0 whiffs and just a 17% called strike whiff rate on that fastball in the first game. So they were seeing the pitch well. They were not fooled by it. He did not have his best stuff. I think this is just kind of what Justin Verlander is now. I was not particularly impressed by his start in Minnesota either. He pitched out of a lot of jams. The Twins kind of bailed him out a little bit, but he was not great in that start. So we've now seen him twice where he has not had great fastball stuff. And, with his approach, it's just not as consistent. So, Montgomery is kind of at the peak of what he is. And I think, the market they're at the peak of the market on Montgomery. But I really think that with all of the top arms throwing in this game, we've seen a lot of overs in this series. But remember that in games 3 and 4, it wasn't all that competitive, the pitching. Scherzer wasn't great. And then last night, just the medley of bad pitchers that were thrown. Texas essentially has 5 guys they trust. 4 of them will probably pitch 8 of the 9 innings tonight. So with that being said, I think that, the under is the look here at 9. At 8.5, I don't bet it, but it has come back up to 9. I know it's a little inversely correlated because I just talked about the tight zone from Hudson, but I do like the Verlander walks as well. I think he is going to have a lot of traffic on the bases early. But again, if he's out after 5 innings, I trust the Astros high-end relievers to get outs. Stanek only threw 1 pitch last night, so he should be fine. Neris should be fine. They're going to have their big 4 guys ready to go tonight for a matchup that I think decides the series. I think whoever wins tonight wins the series because, given Fromber's situation and given the Rangers situation in game 7, like this is the game that probably swings the series.
Even though we'll probably I would imagine it's Evaldi for Texas in game 6 in Houston.
Yes. And Scherzer, I'm going to say this. We'll talk about this if we get to a game 7.
Yep.
I didn't think Max Scherzer's start was nearly as bad when you look under the hood as maybe the results were. The fastball was really good. And that I think matters more for him. The slider was not great. I think you could attribute that to rust, but we'll get into that, if we get to a game 7 on Monday night.
Yep. Game 7 would be Monday night on Fox or FS1, wherever they end up airing it based on TV time. Okay, very good. So under seems like the consensus here, and a bunch of our action contributors are in on the under. BJ's on the under as well, looking at the app. So there you go. Right now I'm seeing now -115, under 9 runs for game 5. Again, this one's in Arlington. It's a 2-3-2 format. So the game's in Arlington, closed roof is the suspected circumstance. Let's go to Phillies and Diamondbacks. I'll go to DeBundo first. So the Phillies, they finally drop one. The bats go a little silent. Craig Kimbrell We tried to talk to you about this at the All-Star break when we watched that All-Star game together. This guy, he's just a freaking headache. Craig Kimbrell. Oh, he just loves making it interesting. Tanner knows this too. When the Red Sox won the World Series 5 years ago with Kimbrell as their closer, gosh, what a headache, this guy. Anyway, it finally did him in. D-backs walk it off. Do we suspect the Diamondbacks, or pardon me, the Phillies bats to wake back up for tonight?
Yeah, if you grabbed Philly at, minus 115, minus 120, I agree with that. Now that it's up to minus 135, I think you're paying another premium on the Phils that I don't really agree with anymore. Remember, you were betting the Phillies with Zach Wheeler on the mound at home at minus 155 in game 1. Now you're laying minus 135 with Chris Sanchez on the mound on the road in game 4. So I know, Zach Gallen too, but there are some clear taxes on the Phillies to, the bounce back and the inflation on the market after this team. This is the first time we've seen these two teams really go deep into the bullpens today. So we have not seen this from Arizona, who started Gallen, Kelly, and Fott in all of their playoff games. And the Phillies only they played 9 playoff games. They've started Wheeler, Suarez, and Nola. They've had a sub-1 starting pitcher ERA in the playoffs. So it's been remarkable. But this is the game where the depth, I think, plays for the Phillies. And I think that's the biggest difference in the series. The Phillies will use Chris Sanchez as the quote-unquote opener starter. I say that because the expectation is that he will only face 11 hitters. So I'm betting under 4.5 hits allowed. There's a minus 150 out there. It has come up overnight. They won't even post outs props at most books because they're concerned about how much or how little he'll pitch. He threw a couple innings in a sim game, 2 quote-unquote innings in a sim game during the layoff between the DS and the CS. But they were not very long, so he has not been stretched out. He has not pitched in these playoffs, so his last full start came back 3 weeks ago now. It's a long time for a starter. So I think the plan is first time through the order. They really like his changeup, and I think that was the reason they switched. They were going to go with Taijuan Walker as the starter in game 4. They liked how Ranger Suarez's changeup befuddled the Diamondbacks yesterday, and they said, let's run it back with Chris. And so I expect 9 batters first time through. They'll have probably 7 righties in there. Then it'll be Marte and Carroll at the top. And then I expect a righty to come in for Gabriel Moreno, Tommy Pham, Christian Walker in the middle of that order. Could be Lorenzen. It could be one of their higher leverage guys. And then they're going to go. And I think we'll see Matt Strahm for a couple innings. And then they'll get to the back end where, everybody pitched yesterday, but nobody worked a particularly stressful number of pitches except for Kimbrell. And Kimbrell can go back to back. Also, people were texting me like, oh, are they going to use Craig Kimbrell again in this series? And I'm like, look, Craig Kimbrell blew the save yesterday. He didn't throw enough strikes. That was a problem. And his inability to hold runners is a real issue. But he also did already close out 4 different games in this playoffs for the Phillies. Relatively stress-free. There was one stressful inning against Acuna where he came in with runners on base and got out of it with, Rojas making the play in center. But he pitched a scoreless 9th against Miami, a scoreless 9th in game 1 against the Braves, and a scoreless 9th in the first game of this series in a 2-run game as well. So, look, they're not going to just give up on Craig Kimbrell because he had one bad outing. We'll be seeing him again probably tonight. So that will be interesting. The bats, they were rough, but that's the give and take of the approach. Like if you're a team that's going to be aggressive at the plate, you're going to whiff, you're going to chase. And the Phillies, they do that. They also do damage. So, would you count out the Phillies having another offensive explosion? Given the pitching situation for Arizona, it's pretty dicey.
Look, I wanted to get inside the heart and soul of a Phillies fan and get some honesty about how you're feeling when you're watching
I'm feeling
Craig
good.
Kimbrell. He's also, this isn't new, but if we're talking to our audience and you're more dialed into to baseball now because of the postseason, clearly he hates the pitch clock because he can't do his normal thing. I'm trying to envision how he does the arm. It's stressful to watch because I'm like, poor Craig, he can't do his whole charade. Yeah, but that guy, he makes it really complicated. And most times he gets out of that. He'll load the bases for fun and then get out of it. Tanner, you've got extensive thoughts on this game. Totals at 9.5, as Tabundo said. I'm seeing Zerillo got the Phillies at minus 115 overnight, some minus 120s. And as Tabundo said, as high as minus 135 now in the market. Totals at 9.5. A lot of Sanchez love from Action Network.
I'm betting Phillies first 5 money line and Phillies money line, and that is because I've been waiting for any usage of Christopher Sanchez these playoffs for a long time, and we finally get it. I love this guy. I'm super high on this guy, and I have a myriad of reasons that I will rip through right now. A, he was a rock solid middle rotation guy for the Phils down the stretch. 3.4 ERA, 3.7 expected ERA. He's not some fluky pitcher. I mean, was super consistent, allowed 2 or fewer runs in 12 of his 18 starts, more than 3 only twice. His ground ball rate is elite, part of the reason why he's so consistent. And I love targeting pitchers with a high ground ball rate. Sinker changeup guy who keeps the ball on the ground. Keeping the ball on the ground helps you keep the ball in the park, which we know is crucial in these playoff games. His chase rate is elite, 35%, 23% swinging strike rate on the changeup. And a big thing about him this season was he just started throwing the pitch more. I mean, he only threw it 20% of the time last year. It's up to 32% this year. You throw your best pitch more often, it usually works out. He has great stuff, including a 123 stuff plus rating on his slider, which he started throwing much more confidently against righties, and that really changed a lot. He has great command, never walks anybody, 4% walk rate this year. He hasn't really faced anyone in the Diamondbacks lineup before. He needs to be careful using his sinkers against the righty-heavy Arizona lineup, but he spams lefties with the sinker, 72%, and is much more balanced against righties. Like I said, he throws his slider more, and his changeup is dominant against the right side. 70% ground ball rate, 21% swinging strike rate. He puts Arizona in their worst split in this game. Arizona's league average offense against righties. They're slightly below average against lefties. And, just like Anthony talked about, the way that Ranger Suarez's pitch mix befuddled Arizona in a start where we all thought Ranger would struggle. Suarez is a southpaw sinker baller, all the same. I mean, Sanchez can do the same thing, but I think better because the swing and miss stuff is better. I know the expectation is he only goes 11 batters. I'm still looking at the Phillies in the first 5 because I think he pitches really well here, and I'm still looking at props here. I'm still looking at over 2.5 strikeouts. Projections are way higher. I know they're not taking into account the short leash, but I think he could get 3 in 12 batters. I mean, he's pitched less than 4 innings in 4 starts this season. He had 5 strikeouts, and 5 strikeouts, and then only 2 against the Braves. That's the Braves. And some props that are great because of his short leash and because I'm expecting him to pitch well. DeBundo's on under 4.5 hits. I like that. Under 2.5 earned runs, -160. Like I said, allowed 2 or fewer runs in 12 of 18 starts, and now he's only expected to face 3 innings? Under 1.5 walks. That's pretty juice, -200, but you got a 4% walk rate. He walked more than 1 guy in 3 of 18 starts this year. Juice prices, but if he gets the projected usage and pitches the way that I expect him to, I think he goes 3 shutout innings pretty easily. And I don't know. I think maybe we get surprised and we see him pitch a little bit more. I'm much higher on this guy than a lot of other people are. Anyways, Diamondback side of things, we're getting a bullpen day out of Arizona, starting with Mantiply, like we said, which scares me a tad, which is actually why I bought a bit of under because, just not seeing the order a few times through. But the reason why I'm on the Phillies is because which long relievers on this Arizona staff do you trust? Ryan Nelson, Kyle Nelson, Miguel Castro could get some run. And then on the flip side, like Anthony talked about, the Phillies' depth, this is where it really comes into play against Arizona. They used some important relievers yesterday, but they didn't use Soto, Dominguez. Like Anthony said, we could see Strom. This unit is so deep and so effective. I think the Phillies have a good pitching advantage across all 9 innings. And ultimately, I just think the Phillies bounce back in the lineup after a dud of a game. Shout out to Mark Jamgo in our Discord server for this. The Phillies are allowed 1 dud of a game. It came last night. They're going to bounce back here, move within 9 innings of a back-to-back pennants. Plus, just as a side note,
I think he might be a Phillies fan. Sounds like something. Sounds like my Twitter feed over the last 24 hours. Everybody's like,
certainly
wow,
not going to punk them.
Yeah.
Well,
I was calling it punking.
It's
we
pretty much
punked
impossible.
in the first 2 games.
It's also pretty much impossible to trust the Diamondbacks now after that just pathetic base running performance yesterday. Oh my God, getting held at third on that double play. Pavin Smith not going from second to third when Trey threw out Gurriel at the plate. Wild mistakes with your season on the line. I don't know. I'm going right back to the Phils, hoping they close this out tonight and then win game 5. Yeah.
If there is
one more thing, Bryce Harper faced 17 pitches in game 3. 1 was in the strike zone. That is a clear concerted effort to avoid him. And I expect the Phillies to flip their lineup today. So I expect Bohm to bat third, Harper to hit fourth because the opener with Mantiply. I think Castellanos or Real Muto will pop up into that 5 spot behind Harper. Bohm has not been great in this series, in this playoffs behind Harper. And so they're going to switch it up and put somebody else behind him just because of how they're opening with the lefty. That does give Bohm a favorable matchup in the first inning immediately. So if you want to look to that, maybe a Bohm prop. Chris Sanchez minus 900 to not record a win. Actually, it's a little cheap. But if you want to get really crazy, I have one book. Probably the most juice I'll ever give out on this show. But yeah, Bohm is interesting to me. Harper walk props still minus 115 out there. So just some, fun ways to get into this action. I don't have a side or total bet on the game though. For me, it's just going to be the Sanchez props, and hopefully the Phils can get some distance here, get to 3-1, and we're getting there.
It's got to get that in at the end. Notice that, like the fandom comes out.
Hey, look, I bet the D-backs yesterday, and I went on our show Green Dot Daily, and I was like, I think you got to bet Arizona today, and it hurt, man. I'm sitting there and I'm watching the game, and I'm like, well, who do I root for?
Bryce Harper's walk price has come up to plus 115 at BetMGM. So keep an eye on that. I know Zerillo bet it overnight plus 105.
Yeah, here's the thing, right? Like even the lefties are pitching around him. Like Sal Frank came in and he threw 1 pitch in the zone. And so look, Harper is a chaser. He's very aggressive. He will swing at pitches out of the zone. But I mean, if there's any kind of decent spot, also Harper steal props.
We need a base open. That's what we need. Guy on second, just put Harper on.
Yeah, that'll happen. And if he gets to first a lot, he could try to take a bag. So, I think that those are the looks on Harper, and I'm going to bet some walk props myself. So,
okay, very good. If there is a game 6, that'll be Monday at 5:00 Eastern in Philadelphia. If there's a game 7 for Houston and Texas, that one will come your way Monday night. We will preview that here at Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. Again, as I said, stay locked into the app as well as actionnetwork.com for written content, video content that we will have from our baseball team over the weekend. For DeBundo and Tanner, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please, again, leave that 5-star rating if you haven't done so already, and a review, and get involved. Discord, I'm sure, will be active over the weekend during the games, so please check that out if you are so inclined. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Enjoy the games, and we will talk to you again on Monday. Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM.